After playing Final Fantasy XIV for some time, I feel like everyone finds their favorite dungeons, ones that you don't mind ending up in on your daily roulettes, because even after doing it so many times, you still find something to love about it. I'm like everyone else, so here's my top 10 favorite Final Fantasy XIV dungeons. They may not be the best, but damn, they're fun. Oh Snowcloak, I do hate you so. Why? Well, first of all, I'm below level 60, so as a monk, I can't form shift, making it take even longer for me to go Super Saiyan 3. Not to mention I have no chakra abilities. It's also low level, so typically there's a few newbies in there that don't know what they're doing, causing me to die. But then why is it on this list? Because of the mechanics. This was the first dungeon to force me to learn mechanics and not just try to maximize my damage output. I found myself learning the focus target feature, so I could easily see cast bars and understand what different abilities were. Not to mention, I just love how the final boss of this place looks. Fenrir looks cool, no pun intended, and he has a good set of intro mechanics that are still pretty unforgiving if you don't make sure to look out for them. But hey, dying to a giant wolf is a pretty cool way to go out. Can I just start with how amazing this place looks? From the floating areas with glowing stairs, to the interlibrary walls with books thrown everywhere. The Great Google Library has a lot of character. I like how you go through fighting not only angry library patrons, but also the books themselves. I like the motif of going deeper into the library where more magic is flowing, so you end up fighting creatures coming out of books rather than just reskinned mimics. Close to the end, I found the library to be rather haunting, with crimson books strewn across the floors, while ghouls and demons are everywhere. The final boss design just creeps me out. It looks super weird, but I find it a good culmination of everything you face on the way down. But my absolute favorite part of this dungeon has to be the first boss, the Demon Tome. The only thing that would make it scarier is if it wasn't in a book. But that'd never happen, right? The Great Google Library Hard is the only hard version of a prior dungeon done right in my opinion. It takes everything from the first and expands on it to the nth degree. More scattered books, more story monsters, more library caretakers. Even the setting is a more grandiose version of the first, starting in an area with a design matching that of the original dungeon, then leading to a grand library with high walls and shelves lined with tomes. It's clear that there's more magic here with all the different creatures that have magic spells, and the different things that come to life aside from the books. I mean, even the demon got out of his tome. Good for him. This dungeon also has one of my favorite final bosses, Strix. Just seeing his intro the first time blew me away. I always liked the idea of owls being wise, and seeing one as a badass mage was absolutely mind-blowing. Have you heard? Final Fantasy XIV is just like Dark Souls, except it's a Final Fantasy MMORPG. I mean, that's not true, but the aesthetic of the vault definitely gave me that feeling the first time I played it. It felt like I was entering Anor Londo and fighting each knight, just emphasized that feeling. I found the use of corridors really creative in making a castle feel more like a dungeon without making too much ridiculous winding roads just like all the other Magic dungeons. It tries to drive home the feeling that you're breaking in and getting to the top, because that's exactly what you're doing. The boss in this dungeon is just something else. Fighting each of them and watching as they change into giants and bring out all the stops is a cool sight that really never gets old. The whole dungeon feels like you're playing chess with the enemy, and though you don't get the king just yet, it's a great end to the battle at hand. It just really sucks losing an ally along the way. The Fractal Continuum Hard is brand new, and man does it show how good dungeons are getting. The first time I entered the dungeon, I knew I would love it, if solely for the background music. The only word I can use to describe it is radical. The dungeon isn't unique with its look, because we've seen it all before, but man do I love what the Fractal Continuum brings. The first boss is a USB stick. As someone who's felt the pain of a USB stick failing on me, it was really soothing to destroy one. Fighting different Ultima beings like the warrior and the beast, and other bio-manufactured creatures is really cool, if only to create theories as to what might be going on behind the scenes. And I mean, you don't really need to do that, because the dungeon tells its own story. Overall, the dungeon is par for the course, but it's a nice course to visit. Let's get it out of the way. Yes, one of the big reasons I love Temple of the Fist is because the final boss is a monk. Fight me. But can you blame me? I found Krollfist is such a cool boss, and he's the epitome of a monk archetype. It's especially nice beating him down and standing over him as the new master monk. Aside from that, I love the overall feel of the dungeon being like a training area. You battle through monsters that lead to two giant electrical beasts, then you fight through large lion statues leading to a trained stone golem of sorts. Finally, you fight a ton of fighting spirits, showing them that you have more fighting spirit, by beating the shit out of them. The dungeon lets you kill ghosts. That's not possible. But in the Temple of the Fist, anything is possible. Can I just say that I love that there are no connecting paths in Anti-Tower? It's either jump pads or magic bringing debris together for you to pass forward. I find that really unique and a cool way to travel. I know other dungeons do it, this one just does the best. This is also one of the first dungeons I remember that has 3 distinct feelings in each area that are actually fairly different. The first focuses on magic and the weird frog things, spawning creatures you don't expect each time you approach a fight. The second focuses on stones and gems, bringing golems to life to impede your progress. Finally, you end in an upside-down castle fighting dolls. It's ominous trekking through these animated toys as they try their best to kill you. I especially hate the final boss, Calcabrina. She's creepy and I can't stand looking at her. As much as I love Anti-Tower, I hate running it because of the sight of its final boss. Speaking of final bosses, I do so love Racevelger, but let's look at the entirety of Sorkai, because you ride on dragons. Not airships, not walking, not teleporting. No, you ride a group of dragons onto a sky fortress. The idea of that is awesome, let alone doing it. And that's just the start. Forget the ads, this dungeon is one of the only ones with 3 bosses that I actually like. You get to fight a Moogle, which I'm pretty sure everyone can appreciate, followed by a Pegasus, and then your Dragon Dad. The only thing I don't like about this dungeon is how easy it is to lose greased lightning stacks, and I do love being Super Saiyan. But no one cares about a monk's pain, so the dungeon is basically perfect. The dungeon also uses jump pads, and as stated prior, I really love those. But Sorkai doesn't make you bounce, no, it makes you fly, and though it can look a little silly, it makes sense that you meet a dragon in his territory. I know it sucks that there isn't a proper area to go to with Alamico, but this dungeon is an awesome experience. Being the second dungeon of Stormblood that has you fighting through a war, I find it very good at actually embodying that feeling. You feel yourself in your character's shoes, battling through soldiers and mechs alike, all culminating in a fight with the big bad evil guy. It bothers me that he just jumps away at the end though, because it feels a bit like a loss even though you literally just defeated him. But without Xenos running away, we wouldn't have Shinryu, and I do love that fight. Alamigo brings the player into the field and really makes you feel like the Warrior of Light, and upon reaching the second boss, you and your character both realize the definition of an out-of-body experience. Doma Castle. I love everything about Doma Castle. Kind of a given seeing as it's number 1 on this list. Where do I start? How about the opening cutscene? Even long after you're done doing this main story quest, you still get the feeling that the dungeon wants to convey. You are at war. You're at the final battle, your allies are fighting outside, and have opened a path for you to break through. The dungeon itself is destroyed both outside and inside. It's being wrecked, and you're running through, ignoring all of it in order to finish your mission and end the war. This dungeon makes me feel like the hero the Warrior of Light is meant to be. Every monster in the dungeon makes me feel some sort of way. The soldiers are pretty standard with the story of Final Fantasy XIV, but those mechs? Let it be known that I love mechs, and being able to fight some that bring their own unique moves is pretty awesome. But what really gets me is Grinawat. He spent every bit of Stormblood making you his rival, losing every step of the way. He has failed so much that the Garleans hyper-tuned him into a weird android thing, and it's an amazing fight. He's not the strongest, but there's just a sort of heavy feeling hanging over the entire fight. Even when the dungeon is finished, the party doesn't cheer like all the other times. Instead, they stare at the boss they just killed, because he doesn't vanish like everyone else. He collapses and lays at your feet. And well, that's hard on even the Warrior of Light. I've been the Owlbear, and with that, my friends, we have completed another task. There's not much for me to say here this time, but I'll make sure that changes soon enough. For now, feel free to follow me on Twitter and tell me how your day's been. I hope it's been nice.